There we are.
I
Always
always,
get you with a mug of tea in your mouth. Don't
always
they?
try and do it quickly. They're like, bam, live.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Dave on YouTube. First to the comments. Good evening there. Welcome along to another Blether, the penultimate Blether of the year. Perhaps. Why not? Here,
Yeah.
Cat keeps dragging guests out of nowhere and pulling them out of hat and saying, "Look, we've got another guest." So we don't know when we're going to finish.
Guests are like buses. Like there's none, and then they all just say yes at once. You're like, oh, okay, we better do something with that. So
We don't mind. We love it. We love it.
maybe a
So, yeah, guys, let us know what is in your glass this evening, where you watching from, and all that. Whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or on our Highland Whisky Academy page, you can let us know who you are, what you're drinking, and if you have any questions for our guests, please fire them through. We are live with Magnus, who is a co-founder of the Manx Whisky Distillery Company. So we're going to be chatting to Magnus in just a wee second. But before we do that, Kat, what is in your glass?
Wow, glad you asked. So
This was not set up at all.
I actually do have some other interesting things on the go because I've been off gallivanting around distilleries today. But I am going to try properly for the first time the new launch from everybody's favorite Northeast distillery. It is what we're launching tomorrow. So it's a 2007 single cask in a red wine barrel. Look, it's just gorgeous. So nice. So nice. So that's what I've got. Pre-orders.
Nice.
We are taking pre-orders also, guys.
Plug it. Why don't you just put the address along the bottom of the screen as well?
That's
No,
what
I'm going for something a little. It's a lot lighter actually than your one. It is in a said glass though. I'm not sure if you can see that.
Oh yeah.
Here we go.
I've got a Speedburn glass. Can you see? Yeah, I've got. There we go. Yeah. Speedburn glass.
Yeah, I've got the Tot of Egg because I thought we're talking about a new island distillery today, so that's my tenuous link. I'm only allowed one dram tonight because I'm driving there, so I will be on the other national drink. Woohoo! Plug for them. Right, guys, let's bring our guest on. Let's bring Magnus Grinneback from the Manx Distillery on the Isle of Man. Good evening, Magnus. How are you?
Good evening. I'm very well, thank you. And you too, I hope.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a wee bit of a special day, but I'm glad I've got a dram in the glass and can sit down and chat now. It's been good.
Well,
excellent.
We should wish everybody a happy St. Andrew's Day as well. It's St. Andrew's Day today, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. Happy St. Andrew's Day, guys.
Cheers to St. Andrew.
So
has Mike just frozen? Oh no, Mike's face frozen. No, you're back. You're back.
I did freeze a little second there, but we're all good. Yeah, so St. Andrew's Day today. So we've decided to get a distillery from the Isle of Man run by somebody from Denmark, which is probably the least Scottish conversation we could have. But hey, that's how things work out, isn't it?
Yeah, there we go.
So Magnus, you're from Denmark. You now live in Isle of Man, and you're now launching Isle of Man's first whiskey dedicated distillery. Tell us a little bit about how that came about. What's the backstory?
How much time do we have? So mind a little detail. So I'm from Sweden. Most Danes would be upset if you called me a Dane. So I'll take it as a compliment, though. So it's good.
You know, Mike, when you said that, I was convinced that you were from Sweden. I thought, oh my God, I thought I'd had it wrong.
No, that's all right. Most Swedes would be proud to be called Danes. So that's good. That's good, actually. They have a much more laid-back take on life that we not so secretly envy.
Okay. Oh dear. So that. Let's start that again. So
that being said, in terms of starting a distillery on the Isle of Man, so it's obviously a couple of years back, but I moved here in 2018 for completely different reasons, and I've been interested in whiskey for a very long time. But I was quite surprised that there was no distilling being done here, at least not whiskey. There were gin distilleries and so on. But yeah, how did that? It's between Scotland and Ireland. You would have thought that there is some sort of distilling tradition here, but I couldn't find any. So there was, an opportunity that was almost too good not to take. So we figured there was time to give it a go, and that's what we did. So.
Right.
That's amazing. I mean, a lot of people think it'd be nice to start a distillery, but you guys just did it. You you just took the next step, that's not easy.
No, well, it is as easy or as hard as you want it to be, I think. And I mean, I had been brewing beer for myself for quite a few years. So of course, if you know how to brew beer, then to take a step into distilling is, I wouldn't say that it's easy, but it's clearly easier. It's very, very similar, the first part of the process at least. So I decided to go on a little tour around Scotland, went to Springbank to see how they do their stuff, old school, and it didn't look that hard. they make it look easy. so maybe they lulled me into some sort of false sense of security, but it was worth having a shot.
Yeah. And so 3 years, you have your launch coming up on the 14th of December. Guys, get involved in that if you can. How can people get involved in the launch? Is it on the island, or you do something else with it?
Yeah, so there are two things that we do. First of all, we bottle the first cask, and that's, again, it's a small cask. It's a 50-liter cask, so it's not going to be a large release or anything like that. But that will be allocated via ballot. So and we will ship, of course, to the island here, but we'll ship UK wide as well. So if anyone is interested in joining that, that's one way where you actually can get involved wherever you are, and as long as you're in the UK, that works. Then we're also doing an event on the island here. We will have about 80 people. We'll give a little presentation about the journey, and then we'll arrange a session where everyone gets to taste cask 1 plus some upcoming casks that we have, and our new make spirit, etc. And that's it. So a bit of a celebration of the first 3 years. So that'll be great fun. Really looking forward to it. So.
Fantastic.
Sounds really, really good. And what kind of wood are you using?
So the first one. The first one, I can't say that we were super strategic about our launch. A lot of things just happened the way they did, because anyway, we can go into that at a later stage. But one thing we actually did plan is that we were hoping that cask number 1 would taste good after 3 years, so we could launch it, and we figured out in time for Christmas. So we picked a PX sherry cask to get something with more Christmassy flavors, etc. So it's a rare moment of strategic thinking there, but we'll see. It does taste quite Christmassy, so at least that part seems to to play out the way it was intended.
So what has your new make spirit kind of turned out the way that you hoped, or has everything been kind of like trial and error? Or were you looking for like a particular character you wanted to achieve?
Well, so a lot of things. Did it turn out? Yeah, more or less, yes. I mean, we decided from the get-go that we were not going to do a peated spirit, and the reason for that is that we're very strict with not using raw materials that don't come from the island. Our barley comes from the island, obviously use local water, etc., and cutting peat is not permitted here. So you could perhaps make a play to get some some exception, etc. But we decided to simply not do peated whiskey. And my other business partner, he's a big fan of Irish whiskey, which is rarely peated. I am more in the Scottish camp, and I do like peated whiskey, but I really do like complex whiskies that aren't peated. Think, Ben Nevises of the world. I think. So for me, it was quite tempting to not go down the peated route. So Yes, so of course the new make isn't isn't peated. I also wanted a new make, and this is where again being a newbie whiskey maker is hard. I don't have the experience to judge how it will mature in cask. You simply have to make your best bet and pray that it's going to mature in a way that is favorable. But I figured that if it tastes good going into the cask, it'll probably taste good coming out of the cask. And the new make that we started with is actually not so much, it has similarities, but our production has changed during these 3 years. So what we put into cask now is fairly different to what we started off with. So it's a long answer to a question there. Again, it has evolved so much, the new make. So it is a fruity, robust new make. I mean, if you see the spirit still, it's a short, stubby 100-liter still. There's no way that that's going to produce, elegant, floral, light spirits. It just won't happen. It is it gets very robust, muscular tones, but you can get quite fruity notes, if you use long fermentations. If you run the still really slowly, you can get a combination of fruitiness and robustness, which is quite interesting, I think. So, of course, the worm tubs also give more robustness to it. So,
yeah.
Really it's cool. Such a beautiful little setup you've got there. It just looks so rustic, and you can imagine it being in somebody's kitchen or somebody's barn or some, back 200 years ago when we were illegally distilling it. It looks like that where you could quickly dismantle it and hide it from the excise men.
You think that when you're running around with a 400-liter still, but I suppose it's possible. But
so yeah, Isle of Man, you're situated right in between kind of Ireland and Scotland. Was it a conscious choice, or have you made a conscious choice to say we're going to follow the SWA rules, or are you looking at kind of creating your own kind of little guidelines, being the first one there, or what's your thoughts there?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, we try to follow the Scottish rules, and that's more because, well, they make a lot of sense. But the local Manx regulations here give you an awful lot of flexibility and freedom to do not exactly what you want. You still need to mature things in an oak cask for 3 years. But you have quite a bit of freedom and flexibility. But ultimately, I mean, our market, I mean, we're not aiming for the mass market here. I believe that anyone who buys the whiskey that's produced here will probably be a fairly informed drinker. And then I think you need to stay relatively close to what other renowned distilleries do. But that being said, we have the luxury of not be doing only the Scottish tradition. We are also looking at doing some tests where we perhaps look a bit more what Ireland is doing. For example, using some oats in the mash bill and see how that affects the texture of the spirit, etc. So that's something we will explore, even if we haven't done it at all yet. So far, we've only done single malt whiskey. So.
Right. So maybe it's a pot still style or triple distillation.
Yes, absolutely. So I think again with the equipment we have, it's kind of has to be a pot still style whiskey. I think so.
Yeah.
But I think that would be nice too. So I mean, there's nothing to. There are plenty of styles of whiskey that are good, but that's again, it's a style that I am quite curious to explore. So I think the bulk of our whiskey will probably always be single malt, more in the Scottish tradition, but nothing wrong with trying a couple of different things. So.
Yeah, you're not tied to it.
No. One of the advantages of being a new distillery is you have a bit more freedom to experiment with things like your mash bill, like maybe I'd imagine. I think when we spoke, you're maybe quite into yeast and sort of heritage malt and heritage. So I mean, you could. I guess there's a bit. Does all your barley need to come from the Isle of Man? Is like one of your kind of like sort of stipulations, or would you source sort of heritage strains from elsewhere?
Yeah, well, so 99% of our barley comes from the Isle of Man. We have one cask which is made with Chevalier barley from across, and that's just wanted to see how that type of barley performs with our spirit. But No, but it's really for the production in general. It has to come from here, and I have a little project where we try to bulk up heritage varieties of we get barley, old school varieties from one of the gene banks in the UK, and we try to bulk that up. And it's been an absolutely miserable adventure so far. We have been feeding pheasants, hares, slugs, etc. And the best we have achieved to get slightly less seeds back than we put into the ground. I'm clearly not a good farmer, but one day this is going to work, so we can bulk up these seeds and get our own our own mix of heritage grains that we can then use to make our whiskey. That's the end goal. Again, it's been not so good so far.
Yeah, farming's not easy. They make it look idyllic on TV, but it's not. It's not.
No. No, it's been really hard, but that's ultimately it's a long-term goal. I really would like. Today we have used Planet Barley, which is a modern variety, and I do strongly believe that you would make a more interesting spirit if you could switch to 100% heritage grains, actually. So.
Yeah, but you do all your malting there by hand in the distillery, do you not?
Correct. Yes, everything we do is floor malted in the distillery. So,
Wow.
But by hand, I really mean by hand. Like you're literally just shoveling, like turning it over with a shovel.
or with my hands, actually. You
With
don't
your
really need a shovel.
Literally by hand.
It's quite. You just kneel down and turn it over. Yes, that's been a quite a learning curve as well, to learn how to malt. But again, it's if you want to get the real local character, I think you want it to be created in the environment where it's supposed to be distilled. If you send it across again to one of the big malt houses, I'm not sure if you actually capture and get the real character of your distillery. And I think that's one of the things that well, we went down this route, is that when brewing beer, like I mentioned, I've done it for a couple of years. I love craft beer. I think it's wonderful. But what's boring with this, that it's all good and it all tastes the same, because why? Everyone is using the same ingredients. No wonder it's hard to tell the difference between one and the other. I mean, clearly there are differences between them, don't get me wrong. There's different water and so on, but the same is true, I think, for a lot of whiskey making. So I don't really understand why it is not a bigger thing. Well, like, the trends are kind of swinging that way, I think, where distillers are starting to do a bit more malting to get their own flavor profile, and I think that's good. So I think it's a very exciting development. So we decided to copy Springbank and do it all ourselves. If they can do it, I figured that we could do it. So.
Yeah, exactly. You're like one of very few doing 100%, I suppose. Yeah, floor malt. I think, I don't know how many are doing 100%. Is it just?
I'm not sure, actually. That's probably other people know that better than me. Springbank's doing it. I don't actually know anyone. Maybe is Stauning in Denmark doing it?
Oh, maybe. They've got like built quite an unusual kind of malting floor, like when they were trialing it all out, because the original building was like an old butcher's or something, wasn't it? And they kind of built am I thinking the wrong one? I'm sure they had something quite unusual for malting floors.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
there must be someone else.
100%. Certainly in Scotland, I think 100% is just Springbank. Guys like Kilhoman do they do 100% Isla barley, which is that specific product is 100% malted and on there, but they don't do consistently 100%. I think Springbank's the only one. There might be some of the new ones that are planning on it or are in production, like yourself, who are doing it, but their whiskey's not out yet.
No.
Yeah, I do know.
There is the one in Speyside, the one that starts with an A. I can't remember the name of it. It's a new one. Yeah. What are they called? They're down towards. What are they called? Isn't it? They're somehow connected to the Bimber guys, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, they don't feel.
Yeah, don't start with an A. Yeah, D. but I think, aren't they malting all their own stuff?
I think you might be right there. Yeah.
Anyway. I think you are. I think there's definitely a shift towards like moving away from mass production, because it's consumer driven. So for a while, distillation was mass production, but definitely there's more places looking towards more traditional distillation methods for sure. So you might see more of them popping up, I guess.
Yeah.
But they maybe won't be doing it just as hands-on as you are. That is
hands and knees on. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there are shovels involved at times as well, but hands are good.
That could be a slogan: the world's first hands and knees on distillery.
Glorious. I'll hire you for my marketing.
Don't. I'll be calling you Danish. I was just telling everyone from the wrong country. So Ed Friday just popped on a comment there. Yes, they are. I assume he's meaning Dunphail are doing 100% malt.
That's cool.
Is that your own liquid you're drinking?
No, actually. It's a Ben Nevis from a Madeira cask that I poured before the talk here. So
nice. Oh, super. We've got a question coming in from Rick, who is over in San Francisco. So it's early morning for Rick, or not quite early morning, about 11 o'clock. He joins us. He's asking how many casks are now in your warehouse, and how big? What would be your capacity of a warehouse have you got?
It's so there are currently 20 full casks in there. So again, still fairly small, but they're varying sizes. There's hogsheads and barrels, etc. Currently, the last one we filled is a red wine cask that is an old Chateau Mouton Rothschild cask, which we're quite excited about to see how that performs with our spirit. And we have ramped up production, and we would never release loads and loads and loads of bottles. That's again, I kind of think, you have small scale breweries, you have small scale wineries. I don't really understand why there can't be small scale distilleries. So it will remain small. But I mean, this year we're producing over 1,000 bottles, and I think that we'll probably be able to scale that a little higher, of course, in the coming years. But it will remain small. It will never be large volumes coming out. I can't see that, at least not in the current setup of the distillery. So.
Sure.
So you're doing all the bottling and the labeling and everything else yourselves as well, like the filling and sticking labels on.
Yes.
Wow. How are you at sticking labels on?
Very handsome.
I'm rubbish at putting labels on. Every single one I do comes out squint, no matter what I do.
I am going to have a label training session tomorrow, but with the scrap labels, because it is difficult. It looks terrible when I do it, but hopefully now I need to learn. So,
how big a team have you got?
Well, you're looking at it. No, so I have my co-founder. He's doing all the barley cleaning. We get the barley straight from the farmer. This is not pristine barley. It needs to be cleaned and run through a winnower, etc. So he's doing all that, and I'm very grateful for that. That's something I don't need to do. Then my wife is doing our social media. She's a very good photographer, and
I was going to ask you. Instagram is beautiful. It just looks like loads of beautiful Polaroid pictures. If MD doesn't follow the Manx Whisky Distillery, you've got to go and look at the Instagram. It's absolutely gorgeous. She's done a fantastic job.
Yeah, and she's also a very good editor. So she gets me to write a draft, which is clearly never good enough, and she edits it and turns it into what I think is really good content, and it's all due to thanks to her work. So that's great, and that's it really. Scott's wife, my co-founder, she helps out every once in a while with the cleaning, and when we need to carry stuff, etc. But it's a small team, if you can call it that. So.
I mean, the staff part is going to be great, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Cheapen it
out. It'll be good from now on. We'll actually have whiskey. Before it's been mostly new make focused. So.
I can imagine, yeah. Oh, brilliant. And so were you mentioned you kind of played around with brewing beer. You did a lot of home brewing.
Yeah.
Were you a whiskey drinker as well? Were you a drinker by passion, or was it something that you kind of developed as?
No, no. So this is going to sound terrible. I have a long proud passion of drinking whiskey. I started very young, and with an unfortunate session with a Johnny Walker Red Label, but even that couldn't put me off. So it's back in the 90s was all these 6 classic malts of Scotland, etc., were quite popular in Sweden. So that's where it really started, actually. And since then I had some really nice good friends that were proper whiskey geeks. So yeah, since then I really enjoyed it. So
Brilliant. Good stuff. It's nice that you're now making your own after that long tasting journey. What kind of whiskey are you favouring now? Has it changed since you started making your own, or?
I think the better way of looking at this problem with the whiskey I make has probably changed based on what I like. So when I find a whiskey I'm fascinated by, then I try to figure out what it is that they're doing to create those flavors. And I wouldn't say that I necessarily try to replicate it, but there might be things in that process that I can learn from.
Okay.
And that might be, the speed of distillery, or what they do with their cutoff points. It might be the yeasts that they use, like you mentioned, Kat. I really like playing around with different yeast types. I think that's an area that isn't explored enough, where I think you can really set your own sort of mark on the spirits, and you can really start playing around with spontaneous fermentations and things like that, and combine that with both brewery yeast and distillers yeast. I think you can get something super interesting. But yeah, I don't think I've changed what I drink because of what I distill. It's more the other way around. So
is that something you would do as part of like a marketing thing, of maybe highlight the different yeast strains that you used, for a new release, or is it just kind of continual development that you're looking for just building on the spirit itself?
Well, we do all bottles will have the yeast strain used. That's something, since I'm interested in it, I'm hoping that anyone who drinks it will be interested to. Bit of assumption there perhaps, but we will keep that on the bottles, and also on the website there will be some more information about that particular batch. Now, since things evolve, it won't be constant. I mean, for the first batch we used Lallemand Distiller Max, which is it's a really finicky distiller's yeast. I don't like working with it, but the flavors are pretty good, I think, quite fruity, but it's a very temperamental yeast that I prefer not to use actually these days. But again, at the moment, we have some casks that probably have 5 different types of yeast, because we need quite a few batches when it comes to filling a large cask. And I don't really use the same yeast all the time between batches either. I try to be a bit more consistent so I can backtrack and figure out what it was that I did right. But there can be plenty of different strains, all from different types of brewer's yeast, different types of distiller's yeast. And I always like to keep a small fermenter that I just keep to propagate a wild ferment that then adds additional texture to the new make. That's
really cool.
It's fun. I quite like it.
Full on yeast geeks.
Yeah. Look up the yeast geeks. That should be a club. # yeast geeks. That should
but it really makes a difference, and I think it always surprises me when distillers don't experiment with this, because there's so much flavor in that the yeast gives, and if you put 2 different new makes next to each other, and the only difference is the yeast you used, you can tell it's really a big difference. So.
Yeah, I think for a long time it was just sort of, the fermentation was seen as a means to an end, wasn't it, for just creating alcohol? But there's so much that happens during the fermentation side of things that I think people are now starting to appreciate a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. It seems to go that way, and then again, that's a good thing, like with the malting. So.
Yeah, when you talk about a problematic yeast, like what would it cause it problems? Is it like to do with how it reacts to temperature, or is it just not productive, or gives like kind of off notes? Like, what's your kind of main problems with like trialing different yeast?
I think sometimes it can be purely logistical. You need to, some of them foam enormously
Okay.
and some foam less. So if you have something that foams, you need to have a way of dealing with with actual foam to keep it from overflowing. Otherwise, you can't really fill your fermenters as much as you want. Now, you can control this, of course, by using modifying the clarity of the water. You can use blades to chop in, but my fermenters don't have blades. They're much simpler beasts than that. So all in all, I mean, it's also quite sensitive to temperature. I find that it does not perform well over a wide temperature range, and my fermenters are outside, so they are. We've installed temperature control in them finally because it was just too temperamental.
Okay.
But other things, when you don't get the right, even when you get the right temperature range, you don't get them to attenuate properly. That you leave sugar in the wash, and that's just feels like you're throwing whiskey away. You want to get so it ferments properly but gives good flavors and doesn't cause you logistical challenge. It's a balance of all these things that you want to get right. So
That's pretty cool.
there's
And
one
yeah.
thing, if you want to have flavor first at all times, and that's easy to say, but there's a limit to how inconvenient it can get, I think so.
Yeah, I guess it's that balance of maybe sometimes sacrificing yield for flavor, which is not a bad thing if you're a small distillery and flavor's your USP, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah.
Fermentation is really kind of taken. I would say the first kind of time I stumbled across someone do something different would probably be Kilhoman. When I did my first tour with them, 2016, and they were talking about a 72-hour fermentation. I thought, wow, that's really long. But now you've got guys doing kind of 100+ hours, nearly 200 hours fermentation, and this kind of, and I think it's kind of born from looking at like yourself. You're looking to make a really good whiskey pre-maturation, so that you don't maybe have to wait 3 years or 10 years. You don't have to wait. You can get there at 3 years. Fermentation seems to be the one that people are using as that kind of key part of the process for getting a lot of flavor in there. It's fun to watch this kind of new development.
Yeah, but just look at beer brewers. They would never drink something after a measly 100 hours. I mean, you really use second fermentations to let the yeast clean up itself. Now, admittedly, it's a different product. You can't compare it, but there's a lot to learn. And the same thing there, that you look at the temperature during the yeast growth phase when most of the flavors are created, etc. So I think there's a whole different understanding of what yeast is doing to the product. And I think the Japanese are probably better here as well with their, or more well versed in it with their sake brewing tradition, etc., which is really yeast driven. So I'm no expert in that, but there's a lot to learn. I think that's the key thing. So
I think they were quite instrumental in the changes that's happened at my other place that I work that we don't talk about. But
except when you're shamelessly plugging it.
Well, but like changing to like a clear wort and longer fermentations, experimenting with the brewer's yeast and the distiller's yeast, it's all influences from the Japanese side of the company a bit. But you can see the difference. The new make, like you've done the new make session at the distillery a few times, Mike. All right, Rick, say it. Klangiri, yes, I did say it. You can take a drink now, Rick.
Rick, it's only 11 o'clock in the morning for you. Come on. Play the game.
Never too early to talk about whiskey, right? So.
It's not, no.
Oh, Rick, I hope you had a nice Thanksgiving last week. Happy Thanksgiving. We did shout you out last week when you left, but you maybe already gone to eat turkey or pull a cracker. I don't think you pull crackers in America, do you? Is that like a British thing? Not too sure.
I have no idea. Rick, let us know if you pull crackers.
You pull crackers.
Thanksgiving, is it?
Yeah.
It's never in any of the movies, is it? But
crackers or Thanksgiving?
Crackers. Well, Thanksgiving's, I think, in every American movie ever made. They talk about Thanksgiving.
I don't think they do crackers in America. Like crackers as in like not the ones you put cheese on, Rick, like the crackers that you pull when you get little paper hats. Let us know if you do Christmas crackers. Anyway.
Magnus, I did say that we might go off tangent a little bit.
That's all right.
Inside my brain, lots of things happen at one time, and then sometimes I just got to like funnel it back to like what I was talking
The
about.
main bit filters out. Yeah. No paper hats. No paper. Oh, come on, Rick. You're missing out on the paper hats. We'll send you over a cracker in the post, and you can blow one at Christmas. There we go.
You know what? The worst thing you did was get rid of the British Rick. Look at that. You could have had paper hats.
So Magnus, I mean, obviously you're launching on the 14th with your first whiskey, and after that, have you got like a set guideline of when we might see a core release, or is it all going to be limited releases, or before that, Christmas? Are you going to have a time off at Christmas? Because obviously working yourself full on, it's going to be quite hard to get time off if you've got some malt more.
Yeah, I mean that's again hard. It's easy to shut it down, but of course nothing will happen. And I think that is the downside, is that to reboot the distillery, to get the malt floors going again, and that is obviously a bit of lead time there. So I don't really like starting and stopping it. So, and I will be here over Christmas. I'll probably keep at least all the malting going, which is, it's. You don't have to do things all the time with it. Some days it's mostly morning and evening to stir the malt and that stuff. Yeah, no, Christmas will be nice and quiet. Otherwise, I don't think there'll be so much full on distilling days or anything like that. But
no, good. You need time off.
Yes, of course.
I'd imagine the trickiest part would be, or one of the trickiest parts would be, deciding on a brand, like a name, a label, a concept. I know you went for like the Manx distillery, which makes sense, or Manx Whisky. But yeah, like how do you decide on, like, do we have a brand logo? What's the font like?
Yeah, it's really hard. I think we have always been pretty clear on what we want to be, and that part was easy. It's that we want to be a very product first distillery, and we don't want to get entangled in too much design. There's nothing wrong with design. I like great design, but I don't think that's for us. It should be the product needs to do the talking. That's the point of it. And then it's almost that we one stage, okay, maybe we should do all the labels handwritten. They try to actually not have design at all. That should be the design. That was probably not the most practical idea in history, but and also have terrible handwriting. But I think we talked to a couple of designers, and all of them have been given the brief that we want a label that doesn't look like it's too well designed, that is not over designed, and they keep telling me that's probably the hardest thing to design, that it should look relaxed and natural, etc. But the whole thing, we always come back to, it should be utilitarian. The name, the company doesn't have a swanky name. It should be what it says on the tin. It's a Manx Whisky Company. We make whiskey. That's it. We're a single product company, and that should be reflected in the name. And we are from the Isle of Man. It's Manx, so we figured that was pretty straightforward. And the same thing goes for the label. It will have our logo. I have a love for this sort of these Victorian metalwork things. There's no deeper meaning behind it. It's just that I think it looks nice.
Yeah.
And we like copper, so it's copper colored. So
it's nice. It's kind of, as you say, it does what's the expression? Does what it says in the tin. Yeah.
But to answer your question about the labels, that was devilishly hard to sit and decide what should not go on there, what should go on there. And again, ultimately, it's good that there's a deadline, because then you really need to make up your mind.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think because sometimes you can look at a bottle and you get so overwhelmed with too much information, and you're like, you give you every kind of cask it's been in, and like bottle numbers, and you're number one of something, or
Yes,
and you kind of, it
absolutely.
just puts you off in a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah, it's really difficult, and I guess we'll see if we ask me in a year's time if we got the balance right. I don't know yet. So at the moment, I think it's good, but look, time will tell. It's
Yeah, exactly.
very challenging.
I do think you missed a trick, and she'd just gone for like the whole Clynelish wildcat thing, but with a Manx cat, so just with a really short tail. And just
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that would have been great. No,
this is just
we said early on. We said early on, no Manx cats and no motorbikes. That's just not, and no ferries.
Because the rats are very. You're not allowed to say the word, are you?
No, you're right. You're right. You got that right. So
long tails, isn't it? You have to call
exactly,
them.
exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. You're not allowed to say the word rat on Isle of Man.
No, it's bad luck. So the
Like
good thing
Macbeth.
that had the headphones on, so it won't. Nobody around will hear it. So.
I did not know that. Is that why? Where's that come from? Or
I don't know. It's bad luck. I don't know where it comes from, but thousands of years of experience. I'm sure.
That would not be the best brand image, though, if it just had a long tail on your label.
No,
it would not.
Very bad luck.
They're not the most appealing animal to put on a label.
No.
Well, I think Rick has got a question for you. If you had to describe your flavor profile by comparing it to something already on the market, what might be similar to the Manx distillery products?
That is a good question.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I always, when I try to describe it, I think it's again, it's also a hard comparison because if I would have to pick anything, I would pick more of a Highland profile than anything else. But Highland is so incredibly diverse. So I'm not sure if that actually means anything. I mean, you guys would know that better than me. But it's certainly not an Isla. It's not a Campbelltown. Although, if I was going to flatter myself, I would say that it wouldn't be actually. It's not like an unpeated Glen Scotia. That's simply not true. It doesn't taste like that. Nor is it like a Hazelburn. It's not like that either. I would say that's probably like a robust Ben Nevis, perhaps. I think it's a bit more muscular, and slightly bit more mouth filling than I think a Ben Nevis is, but also a bit more fruity. But at the best of times, I think it has that layering of complexity that a Ben Nevis has. So. I'm not sure if that means anything at all. And then maybe if you try it, you would think it's absolutely not like that. It's completely different. But
I do like Ben Nevis, so that's.
Yeah, I've been trying to understand how they get all those complexity levels in. I haven't been to the distillery, and I wonder what it is that they're doing to get that into it. I've never understood, but I would like to know, because there is a particular almond complexity that they managed to build into it. Heaven knows where it comes from, but
I think sometimes we just don't know though. Which distillery was it? Was it Broder when they restarted and they literally interviewed every old member of staff to try and figure out what they were missing, and they couldn't put their finger on it because it's just something about the magic, I guess, of distilleries you can't really articulate. It's just there, I suppose, like in the bones of the place.
Yeah, I think Clynelish was the same. We asked them, and when we were there, it's like, where does the waxiness come from? And I mean, they say it's built up in the tanks and whatnot, but nobody really seemed to know. So I guess that's all right. So.
Yeah. That'll be it. They'll be like I was going to say, like, 10 years time, we'll all be drinking like Manx Distillery. Like, how do they get that in there? Just
Yeah, and I wouldn't have a clue. So. but what was I going to say? Yeah, so what I think in terms of the flavors, well, it has changed quite a bit over time. The first new make I made, again, I proudly copied quite a bit from Springbank's. I was doing 2.5 times distillation like Springbank's doing. And that's good. That's nice. Eventually, I've moved to just a straight double distillation simply because I actually think it tasted better. So I think the 2.5x distillation stripped a little bit of the character, I thought. So yeah, if you drink regular releases through the years, you'll probably see that the spirit has changed quite a bit. So, and I guess that's part of the learning curve. So,
Good. And you mentioned a couple of distilleries there you've spoken to. Has everyone been quite open to welcome you in when you tell them what you're doing, and you find the industry quite helpful?
I think it's been an incredibly positive experience. I don't think anyone is really trying to hide anything, to be honest. I think the only thing that some distillers are a bit more secretive around is actually what yeast they're using. I've come across that on very few instances, but in general, I think it's very much an open book. You can go in and ask anything, and you'll get an answer. Details around precise mash schedules, or if you really want to understand how where their cut points are in the distillery and so on. There's very little secrecy, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, no, it is. It's good, isn't it? No matter where you go, people are so open to like sharing information and stuff. It is a great world.
Absolutely.
I was actually, so the 2.5 times distillation, I've been to Springbank, and I was waiting until the end of the tour because this was the one bit that I wanted to get my head around because I couldn't wait for it. And then the tour guide was amazing, bless her, but she was a seasonal guide, and I asked, and she's like, I don't know, there's a diagram on the wall. I still don't think I get it. Like, how are we getting 2.5 times? Just for like the sort of the rest of us that don't quite know what's going on with that.
Oh, thanks for that one.
Is it Springbank, did you say, Kat?
Yeah. So no, actually, there's another distillery that's doing a bit of it. I can't remember which one it is. It might be a Speyside that has done a bit in the past, but again, someone else might remember. But essentially, what you do, and again, those of you who know this better than me, please correct me. But what you do is that first you do your wash run as usual. You take. You add a middle step where you redistill the low wines completely. So you end up with feints. Essentially, you just boil that all the way through, and then you take that step and you blend with fresh low wines from another wash run, and you can take 20 or 30% of the volume. So you have the stuff that's already double distilled, and you add the fresh ones into the spirit still, and then you just run that through the spirit still as per usual, and then you put the feints back in, and you mix that with the redistilled low wines again, and then it just carries on. So,
okay,
I'm not sure, was that understandable at all?
That yes, because I just didn't know what was going back in to make it like a 2.5 sort of thing. But okay,
yeah, I don't know how you. I actually don't understand how you get to 2.5 any more than I understand how you get to 2.71 at Mortlach either. It beats me how someone gets to that. But anyway, it was the same principle that I applied, and it really works. But I figured that the more fresh low ones I used, the better it tasted. So I ended up just dropping it in the end. So
okay, that's cool. That has answered that. That's been a niggling annoyance of mine for a while now. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's time consuming and so on. So it has to be for very good reasons why you want to keep doing it. But again, it works for Springbank. Certainly nothing wrong with their product. Rather the opposite. It's amazing.
No, yeah, exactly. It's a fantastic whiskey.
Mm.
Yeah. It's just incredible how we have such a simple product in essence, but all these little tweaks along the way can make so much difference. And why we have 145 distilleries in Scotland alone, not including England, Ireland, yourselves.
And that's before you put it into cask, where you see even more variety, which is just mind-boggling, I think so.
It is, but it's a fun world to be part of. There's a lot of variety and a lot of choice, isn't there? Just not enough time is the problem. We need a couple of lifetimes to get through them all, and a bigger bank account.
Yeah.
So, what is a sort of a day in the life of you running the distillery like? From sort of getting up in the morning and starting the distillery up to like finishing at the end of the day. It must be quite a full-on day, I guess, most days.
Yeah, so I do 2 full distilling days a week, and the rest I do malting, cleaning up, etc., etc. Now, this could be expanded, but at the moment the bottleneck is the malting. So, and I have plans to scale that up. But I'll in the end, I mean, those 2 days are very full on. I mean, I start at 6:30 to actually I start the day before to make sure that the stills are charged, etc., and then just go up and basically, they're direct flames. So you go out there with the matches and light the flames under the stills, and I've preheated water for the mash. So I do both of these days. I do mashes, and yeah, the morning is spent again making sure that the stills start the way they should, getting the first water into the mash tun. And with my barley, the malt is sometimes quite unevenly modified. It hasn't, the grains are not perfect, and that's the charm, I think, of doing your own malt, is that you don't get a 100% consistent product. But that means I need to add an extra. I'm not sure if you're familiar with. You will be familiar, Kat, of course, and you, Mike, I guess. But when you mash, you try to hit different stops to get different enzymes to do the job. And normally you try to go straight for the beta amylases at about 64 degrees. But I can't really do that because I need to add a protein stop to make sure that I reduce dextrins and whatever else it is, that can sometimes just create glue in the mash, and it gives me a stuck mash, and that's an absolute pain when that happens. So I need to add an extra stop. So that's the first thing to do, and then I add more water, so I hit the first real stop, and then of course keep doing that through the day. Use 3 waters in general at the same time as both stills are running. Make sure that they do the first cut. After maybe first, it's quite quick to warm up the spirit. Still takes about an hour. Do the first cut, and then that can hum along. Let that go really slowly, and then it's just carry on mashing, carry on taking care of the malt. There's always malting to do. The kiln needs to be stirred, otherwise it clumps together in the kiln as well. You need to stir the stuff on the floor, etc. Then after lunch, I usually have already at the lunchtime done the second water in the mash tun, pump that out into the fermenter, do the third water, make sure that gets put away for tomorrow, so I can use that in the first mash. In the afternoon, the mash tun needs to be emptied. I put that on wheelbarrows, roll that out to the sheep in the paddock next to the distillery, which is always good fun. And at the same time, just make sure that the condensers don't overheat. Make sure that you cut the spirit still at the right time, and that's mostly sniffing and smelling. See what it smells like. I do normally cut it between 60 and 63%. So I do quite low cuts. So I keep quite a lot of heavy alcohols in the spirit. But it's mostly, if it starts to smell too much like wet dog, then I stop it there and then. And it varies quite a bit. Sometimes it comes a little earlier, sometimes a little bit later. And you can also slow the still down if you want to dig a bit deeper into the distillation, and then you get a bit more pear notes into it, which is nice.
Yes, like every bottle of whiskey you're producing is like, just like you, like everything. Like it's just like capturing like you from like running around hands and knees to like your own nose cutting the the spirit at the end. Is just kind of essence of Magnus is what you should have called it, to be honest. That's a full-on production.
For better and for worse, I would say. But that's essentially it, and I mean, then it just carries on. And usually the big still, I turn that off around 5 o'clock, perhaps, depends a little bit on what's in it. The spirits, it takes a bit longer, might be 6 o'clock, so it takes almost 12 hours from start to finish on that one. I really run it slowly, so it's but that's it, and then just empty them and get things ready for the day after. So I'm quite tired after 2 days of that. So
I can imagine.
I'm surprised.
but it's really rewarding. It's really nice, when you at the end of a distilling day pour your new make into cask. It smells good. You're quite tired, but it feels really satisfying. You haven't made any major mistakes, so then it's good.
That's amazing.
Hmm.
It must be quite hard to find stuff of such a small scale to be doing something like this.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. That's been one of the hardest things, is that there isn't much distilling equipment that is so small, especially the malting side of things, because there are almost no micro maltsters at all. Breweries don't really do it. Very few distilleries are doing it, so we had to build stuff ourselves. The malt kiln we have is, it's home built. We have a new one that's being built to specifications, but again, it's a design we've done together with the guys who built it. So you can't really find things that are so small, which is a little sad, because I think a lot of small breweries would benefit from doing this themselves, I think.
Yeah.
The stills are quite straightforward. You can just order them. The Portuguese are good at building stills, relatively small stills. They have a long tradition of that, so that's quite simple, I think. So
Yeah.
Interesting. No, it's not a country I would have associated with distillation.
No, but I think they have a long tradition of distilling brandy in various shapes and forms, and they have a really big copper industry there, and they're good at it. So
Okay. That's cool. Yeah, I think Forsyths are pretty much all about scale, really, aren't they? I'm not sure Forsyths are churning out little wee twitty stills anywhere.
And I've heard it's such a long waiting list for Forsyths as well. Like, you're talking 4 or 5 years or something. You could have you've made your whiskey in that time that you could have just been waiting for still.
Yeah, that's not cheap either. Fantastic stills, of course, but yeah, they don't do them for free. Surprise, surprise.
Well, they're like going all around the world, aren't they? Like, they're transporting stills out to, China and Australia and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure. Actually, it must be a massive export. I guess every respectable distillery would probably try to get a Forsyth, I would guess.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. Well, it's a great little setup you've got behind you anyway. It just looks fantastic. It reminds me a little bit of, we were speaking to Alan from Tyree Distillery, and they've just announced the release of their first whiskey. I think they're releasing it in January, but they did a ballot for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very similar to your setup, just everything just kind of quite small and contained. And within, I think it's like it's like a beautiful kind of shed he's got all his stuff in. But it's great to see outside. I was at Glen Murray today, because our old distillery manager is now the manager at Glen Murray, and it was fantastic. It's a great place, but it's factory scale. Like, you've just got these giant washbacks outside, and these massive sheds, and it's like a 35-acre site. It's just colossal, and they're just churning out spirit, just constant. And it's just come and like see what you're doing. It's just it's night and day, but it's really, really cool to see the differences.
Yeah, I think there's
like,
definitely
we could
need
fit your
for
distillery
both.
literally. Yes, no, there's definitely a need for both, of course. But yeah, that's nice thing about whiskey. There's room for us all as well.
So if you want to geek out on yeast, then Quinella is definitely somebody to speak to.
Ah, excellent.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I've chased him down actually, because he was ghosting me, and he said, "Oh, you didn't email me." I was like, "Yes, I did." So he'd given me the wrong email address. He's given me, so I got him to put his email address on my phone. So we'll get Quinella on, and he's a proper geek when it comes to yeast, in a good way.
Oh, that's good. That is useful. So I should find him and talk to him.
Yeah. And
he was kind of like he was kind of the one that kind of got me looking at it, because as a tour guide, you're kind of given a basic script, and you go into where the washbacks are. You're like, this is yeast, eats up the sugar, produces alcohol. Let's move on. Let's go and look at the big shiny still, and that's it. But it was kind of Quinella that kind of got me looking more into that, and like the importance of yeast and different yeast strains. And I just kind of think of yeast as kind of like a little wee kind of or you maybe don't have them in Sweden, but like we have these things called sea monkeys, and you get like a little packet of like dried out fish, and you pour them in water when you're a kid, and they kind of come alive and they just kind of swim around. To me, yeast is like sea monkeys.
I have not heard of sea monkeys, but I see where you're coming from.
Google sea monkeys and then tell me if yeast looks like that, okay? Because in my head, yeast is just sea monkeys.
Excellent.
We've got a couple of comments coming in. Chris has just joined us. Good evening, Chris. Yeah, you feel free to catch up. No need to apologise for being late. Ed Friday says that both valid, as in both scales of distilleries are valid. He also loves Glen Murray. Dave Ferguson has to go. So, cheerio, Dave. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dave.
Hopefully we'll catch up later. Center. Did you lose me there?
No, I'm still here.
Yeah, and I think Mike. I think you just cut out, and I think I'm about.
There we go. So there's Rick's question. When does this construction start on the visitor centre?
Good question. We are extraordinarily poorly set up for visitors. So at the moment we are very much closed to public. It's just not a suitable environment to be in. It's crammed and crowded, etc., etc. I think for the time being, for us, it's more. We have a lot of whiskey to make, and I think we need to work on that. So I think that it's not really something we're considering at this stage, unfortunately. So if someone is desperate, let me know.
I know a guide that's willing to travel if you get that set up.
Yeah.
I'm going to say you'll have to have something set up for. Is it the TT? Is it May the TT is?
Yeah, that's right. May to June, but no, I can't do it. It would be too disruptive, I think, for the production. So unfortunately,
yeah, you just have to make lots of whiskey for them to try and.
That's the plan. So.
All the cars will be sponsored by the Manx Distillery. It'd be like Formula One.
Yeah, I'm sure our sponsorship budget will permit an awful lot. So.
How big is the Isle of Man? I don't know a lot about the Isle of Man. Is it what's it comparable to?
I mean, it's 85,000 people, so it's not.
Wow.
It's not huge, but it's not Isla. It's far bigger than that. So, and I think maybe it's. I don't know, 20, 21, 22, 23 kilometers wide and maybe 50 kilometers long or thereabouts.
Okay.
Something like that.
I lived on an island that was 4 miles long and had 180 people. So
wow.
Your one's a bit bigger. But that's nice though, because you must be set up. You must have all your kind of shops and, schools and everything.
Well, we do have schools and we do have some shops, yes.
Yeah. Is it hard to get stuff on the island for what you need in terms of like yeast, for example? That's not, you don't go down to the co-op for that. Like that's obviously
no, we leave the baker's yeast. We haven't really ventured into just yet, but it varies. Sometimes it's easy, and sometimes it's not so easy. It depends a lot on the weather. But you've got to make sure that you have plenty of margin because the shipping is frequently disrupted, so it's unpredictable. And the same thing if you get big stuff, like when you order the stills, the shipping companies from Europe don't ship to the Isle of Man. You need to take them into the UK first and then find a way to get them over here. But there are ways, and it works relatively well. You just need to be patient and plan well in advance. So.
I always thought it was funny. So Oban was my closest town, and we had an Argos, and Oban's classed as the gateway to the islands. Argos did not deliver to the islands. I was like, wow. Why would you build a store in the gateway to the islands and refuse to deliver to the islands?
Yeah, well, it feels a bit like that sometimes, and everything you ship is more expensive here as well. So it's obviously not the cheapest place to run a distillery. But in the end, if you aiming at the higher end of the market, I think that's okay. But you could never build, for example, Glenmurray here. That just wouldn't work. There wouldn't be the barley supply. There wouldn't be the logistics. Just isn't here. So
I guess your staff, your staff team, so you pick up a little bit there.
yeah. Oh, it's a question here. Experience is to sell to people to help to turn barley. That would actually be an excellent idea. And maybe we could do some fermenter cleaning as well.
I think you're gonna have to really sell that one, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a hard one. You get to smell the delicacies of the wash. It's hard. It's a tough sell.
Yeah, I
Turning
think if
barley
you
is
were
more
to call it
fun.
cleaning, you'd have to give it like a more like a fancier name, like fermenter rejuvenating or something. It just makes it
Nice one. Fermented rejuvenation. Yes,
Oh, do
excellent.
you know
But
what?
it's a good package.
Yeah, I think Ed's onto something there. Like a sort of like when you can go to Springbank and do like the half. No, how many you did it, Mike? How long?
It's a week. Yeah, you go there for 5 days and you work at the distillery. So
Yeah.
People would
Absolutely.
love that. People would really love that. Getting into their like hands and knees into all your malt and clambering
Get
about.
to hand turn the barley and all that. That would be.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
it is nice. But when you follow the barley, I mean this is related to what we're talking about, but not anyway. So when you see the way it smells from the start and how it changes its smell during the process, how it goes from smelling just like old grains to start to get all these apple flavors, etc. That's good fun actually.
It's one of my favorite parts of a distillery too. Is each room has its own smell, and you kind of follow what happens through the smells of a distillery.
Yeah, and then you always appreciate the whiskey better at the end. You kind of start to pick up what you kind of smell, whether that's whether it's psychological or whether it's sensory, or a combination of the both. But it definitely always makes the whiskey better at the end once you followed that journey.
But I've just had another thought for you, Magnus, about your experience. When people come, they have to bring their own bag of yeast as part of the fee. So that saves you on travel costs, on shipping costs, and that gets you yeast into the island, no problem.
Oh, wonderful! Yes, we'll consider that. Thank you.
but no baker's yeast, guys. If you're going, don't bring baker.
Why not? Why not? We'll give it a go. The baker's card.
Ed, good idea, Ed. That's.
We'll put a pin in that and we'll come back to you, Ed, and we'll just firm up some details and then we'll get that started.
Might get a founder's fee or bottle. The first experience. Ed could be the first person to clean the fermentation tank. Sorry, rejuvenate the tank. Yeah.
Rejuvenate. He wants a percentage for the idea, yeah, of course. Well, it was a good job you came on tonight, Magnus, because you just would have been struggling away otherwise,
Yeah, exactly. Without those ideas, I'd be stuck. So
there we go. We've done you a service. Well, I'm very excited about seeing this whiskey finally appearing maybe on the shelves one day, like when people haven't just bought it all instantly overnight, which I'm sure is what's been the case with your first release. But
yes.
You're balloting the first release, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. So, and then we have obviously there will be a little bit more coming out next year as well. We have a small sherry cask that doesn't really need more time. We have some bourbon casks that are reaching the magic 3 years, but I think they need a bit more time. They feel still a little raw. I think that they taste great, but I think it's a little too early for them. So we'll hold on to those a bit longer. And then we'll just see what matures and what shapes it's in. But there will be something else coming out next year. But unclear if we will do probably 2 more casks, I think. But we'll see. So
how easy is it to find casks? Because I know that they're at a premium just now, and everyone wants them. Are you finding that quite difficult?
So far, touch wood, it's been okay. I can't always get exactly what I want. I mean, if I want to have a for example, a Manzanilla cask or something like that, that might not always be available, but I can usually find something interesting. I mean, been able to get both Amontillado and Palo Cortado casks, and of course, standard Oloroso casks. Wine casks seems to be fairly easy, actually. And again, their good old refills have not been difficult to find, or first fill bourbon casks. It's not been a problem yet, but I always dread it when I order casks that it's going to be a cask shortage, because that would be a genuine problem. So,
Yeah. Well, do you know what? When the bourbon cask appears, put my name on that one. Just CAT and give me a shout. And
we have a couple of interesting casks actually. I ordered some firkins that have had some sort of peated Speyside in them previously.
Okay.
I have no idea what it is, but the spirit that matures in those ones is coming out really nice, and that has a tiny backbone of peat that comes from the cask, and that's an interesting experiment. I quite like what I'm seeing there. So
Cool.
we'll see how that develops. But
yeah, because you talked earlier about the peat not being you're not allowed to
yeah, exactly.
It's obviously a way of getting peat into your whiskey is
Exactly.
ex-Islay or ex-peated casks.
Exactly. It will never be heavily peated, but it gives a nice, again, an extra layer of complexity, and it's quite promising actually. Yeah, and I've only tasted the oldest one we have there is a bit over a year, but that's developing really nicely. So
Superb. I like Rick has just put a comment. He just wants to give a shout out to Magnus and the team for staying true to being a whiskey distiller and not distilling a bunch of other stuff until the first whiskey is released. That's very nice. So,
thank you, Rick.
That's very true. I think Ed had a question there.
Yeah, kind of tied in to the same kind of idea. Are there any brewers on the island? I love a whiskey cask finished beer. So yeah, there is beer. There's brewery. There's a gin distillery.
Yeah.
Are you quite friendly with these guys? Have you done any collaborations?
We have not yet actually, but there is we're all talking to each other and on good terms with each other, which is, I mean, it's a small island. You can't walk around being upset with each other. It doesn't really work. But I actually have brewed this is just a home project that I did for fun, but for Christmas 2 years ago, or it was 3 years, I can't remember, me and a friend brewed a 50-liter batch of strong Scottish inspired ale and poured it into one of these ex-peated Speyside casks and let it sit there for 3 months, and that turned out again slightly smoky, nice sweet bourbon tones mixed with the ale, and that was really nice actually. So, but again, that was strictly for personal consumption. but I guess it's a good idea once we're done with the cast. See if the breweries are interested in doing something with them. It's a really good idea actually. So I like that.
Ed's on top form tonight with his ideas. So we're gonna have to.
He is actually, yes.
Yeah, we'll have to get him on the payroll.
Oh, David Muirs is saying hello. He's over in Skye. Hi, David. How are you?
Hello, David.
Working hard, I hope.
Working hard or hardly working?
Oh, in Skye. I always wanted to go to Skye, but that's for next time I head up towards Scotland, I think so.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Well, you've got a Skye Dram tonight, Mike, haven't you?
Yeah. I had the Torre Vague, which is, I thought, is as much of a link I could get without. A new distillery on an island was as far as I got.
It's a very good one though. I really like Torre Vague. I only tried it once, but I was quite impressed by it.
I love it. It's one of these distilleries, and I've mentioned this on our Blether before, that I tend to forget about when talking about new distilleries, because it feels like it's been around for a long time. It's got the market and the branding and the taste of an older style whiskey. It's very it's very easy to forget that it's kind of 4 years old, 5 years old.
Yeah. But that seems to be the thing with a lot of the new distilleries. It just tastes good already at that age, which is interesting actually. So.
Yeah.
It's like Ardnamurchan as well. You kind of feel like Ardnamurchan's been on the go for forever, but
Yeah.
it hasn't released.
No.
Amazing as well. So.
Yeah, great. But a beautiful location for a distillery.
Hmm.
Amazing.
He's a
Also
very
on the list for a
person.
study trip. So.
Exactly. And I'm sure Connell and Graham and the guys there would love to have you over. They'll be very welcoming if you do.
Mm.
They just celebrated, not Ardnamurchan, but Adelphi, who kind of owned them, just celebrated 30 years as an independent bottler.
All right.
I can't believe they've been around that long, but that's incredible.
Wow.
Ed Friday's got a very, very important question. I think with your ideas, Ed, you have just become a friend with Magnus, but he's asking, how does one become friends with Magnus?
Well, you
I
come
think
and
he's
pick
after
up.
that cask of smoky beer that you've just made.
Well, you come past and pick up your own personal bottle of the cask matured ale from 3 years ago. I still have a bottle, I think. So I'll put it on the shelf with your name on it.
Let's all head over to the Isle of Man. That
Yeah.
sounds like a good place to be.
Yeah, ferry prices to Isle of Man. Like every ferry is just sold out now for the next week. People
Well,
trying to get
with the whiskey crowd, that would be quite something.
Yeah,
I think. Don't think we have enough whiskey to go around for that. But
Ed's only wanting the beer, so you're all right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, fine then.
We'll just do a bring your own bottle. It's fine.
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah.
Yeah.
I need to see the Isle of Man one day. That'd be a lovely place to go and see. But yeah, there's so many places I want to go and see as well. There's so many islands to go and see. I don't even know how many islands are around about the coast. There must be like hundreds of them.
There must be.
Imagine if they all had a distillery.
Is it not like 287 islands or something like that? Or
Is that
187?
UK? I don't know.
I think it's Scotland. Something like that.
Okay. Yeah, we do. We've got a lot of them.
And each of them should have a distillery, at least one. So.
They probably all had one at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
They probably did. They probably did. I mean, if you're living on an island, like 100, 200 years ago, you're going to want to have booze, because otherwise it was just religion or childcare. You're going to have something in between. So you have to have, some food.
Religion or childcare.
Or farming, and that's so weather dependent.
Farming, I was going to say, probably in that order as well.
Yeah, exactly. They all go hand in hand as well, I'm sure. Sheep husbandry, child husbandry, and then God in between. Yeah, you would need some whiskey.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. Magnus, if you do get some downtime, and when you're not spending it talking to the cat and I, what do you like to do to relax?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I like making things. I mean, one of the things that I really really enjoy is to try to understand how things work, a little bit like I've done with the whiskey. So whenever I cook, I take almost the same approach, try to figure out how it works, whether that is, I mean, in the past I've been making salamis and, curing meat, baking bread in every possible way. I think I've fermented anything and everything you can ferment in the kitchen. I tried to make cheese once upon a time. That was not a winner, I dare say, but it was fun to try. I like to go walking around the island here. It's really nice up in the mountains and so on. So look, anything and everything. I actually have quite a big interest in drinking wine as well. I love wine pretty much almost as much as I like whiskey. It's hard to say which one I like the most sometimes, but it's a strong interest in that as well. So anything you can eat or drink is something I'm keen on. So
that sounds like a good interest to have.
Yeah.
Is it? There's not really a climate on Isle of Man for growing grapes yet, is there?
There's a reason why I'm focusing on whiskey and not on winemaking. I think that's one thing, doing crazy things with a small distillery, but I think starting a vineyard here, I think, is probably not ideal, to be honest.
Beyond.
No, thankfully global warming is not there yet, and I hope it takes a long time. So.
Yeah.
They do say that England, especially in the next 25 to 30 years, are going to have a similar climate to the south of France. So yeah.
I don't think that's a good
invest
thing.
in vineyards.
Yeah. So we'll see. Hopefully, we're all still around then, drinking 25-year-old Manx distillery whiskey.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go. Actually, yeah, that would be quite something. So.
Yeah.
it
And
would be
that must
amazing.
be really exciting, knowing that you're starting this journey that could go on for generations. We could be talking 20 years down the line, and you think, well, I'm going to hand reins over to somebody who is going to take that on, and this
But
could
I
be.
think I think that's right, actually, and I think that is one of the really exciting things. I mean, we talk a lot about the first release, etc. But I mean, it's easy to forget that the first release is actually only that. It's just a release. It happens to be the first one, but I mean, quite frankly, I mean, most distilleries are probably not producing their best whiskey in their lifetime for the first cask. Rather the opposite. I mean, that's when we're still learning, and then you keep learning on. And I think as the casks mature, you don't really know how the spirit will react. So I mean, one of the best things I find is, when you get to go out in the warehouse and you sample the cask to see what happened, and when you become positively surprised that something has really developed, that's just amazing. And imagine doing that 10 years down the line, or 15 years down the line. Yeah, I agree. It's super exciting. And I guess the trick now is to make sure that we fill casks, some of them that are more for the long haul and some that are more for the short haul. I mean, you wouldn't want to have a 50-liter sherry cask in 25 years time. I think that would just taste bitter and be undrinkable. But
Yeah.
that is really exciting, actually.
That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think I would ever be a good distillery owner, because I don't think I've got the patience to wait for that 3 years, when it goes in the cask. I'd always be wanting it to be ready, and don't have that patience at all. So a very, very exciting time for you to be coming to that point, and kudos to you to be able to sit on it and leave it to mature till it's ready.
Well, again, 50-liter whiskey is actually quite a lot if you're gonna drink it on your own. So, and as much as I like my own whiskey, I think I don't think I could drink it all immature like that during the maturation. And I mean, and that's one thing that I need to learn and understand better. I mean, the casks, they kind of look after themselves, but I mean, I've never done whiskey maturation before. This is something that's new to me as well. So it is really exciting. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like the unknown, the maturation side of things, isn't it? Kind of leaving it to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm already learning things there, of course. I mean, but I've only seen 3 years of maturation. I don't know what happens in 10 years' time. So
yeah, that is the unknown yet. But yeah, exciting time for you.
Yeah, very. Is your first release? You might have mentioned. Is it cask strength, or are you cutting it? Or?
Yeah, no, we will never cut our whiskies at all. We'll release them all cask strength, so then people can do what they want with them after that. But it is quite low in alcohol, partly because it came in a little lower. And again, this is almost embarrassing, but I used a refractometer to measure the alcohol that went in, and it turns out that one doesn't work particularly well at higher strength alcohol. So it came in a little on the low side. And then the warehouse we have is a really, really high humidity. I mean, it rains a lot here, and it's a stone building. So, of course, that increases the evaporation rate for the alcohol more than the water. So I think it is about 49%. So it might sound low, but that is straight out of the cask. But it's partly because of what went into the cask, which I know it sounds amateurish, but it happens to be the truth. So. And then, of course, the evaporation rates have been brutal in these small casks in that environment as well. So,
yeah. That actually answers Ed's question. He was asking about the climate compared to Scotland. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, But it is a little different. I think I'm not an expert on the island climate in Scotland, but at least it's far warmer in winter here compared to mainland UK in general, and certainly compared to Speyside and most of Highlands, etc. Whereas summers are substantially cooler. So when it's when it was 40 degrees in England, for example, I think we had 26. So it's dramatic temperature difference. We never really get hot summers here, and the
26 is
winters
hot
are
enough.
wilder.
That's,
I know,
yeah.
but that's like the heat record of all times. So. But I
Oh,
would imagine that the Scottish Islands have similar climate. I
yeah.
would guess. So.
Yeah, it kind of depends whereabouts, but yeah, West Coast, just a lot of rain, like a lot. But nice summers because you're on the Atlantic, so yeah, you get better summers, but much more rain in between, I guess.
Yeah, but it's windy and rather wet rather often. So again, if you like whiskey that's been matured in humid climates, then this is the place for you.
There you go.
Excellent. Guys, if anyone's got any more questions, please fire them through. Magnus, I just love to say thank you very much for giving up some time from your kind of one-man operation to sit with us and let us know a little bit, or a lot, actually, I should say, about what's going on with you. Very exciting and obviously a very busy time for you. So we really appreciate you coming on and chatting to us tonight. It's been really good.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for asking questions, etc. And if you have any questions afterwards, you just send me an email. It's magnus@manxwhisky.com, and I'll do my very best to answer if I can.
So this is how you become friends with Magnus, Ed. You get his email.
Get his email. Yeah, well, best of luck with the launch as well. Hope that all goes well. And
yeah, fingers crossed. So.
Yeah, you're welcome back on whenever you like to update us about any new releases you've got as well. We're really keen to hear how things go and how things progress out there with you guys.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just before we go, Kat, next week we have a guest.
We do. So, yeah, this is not the last week. We have Polly Logan from Turmore on next week, and it's Christmas jumper week. So she's promised to wear a Christmas jumper. So looking at your Christmas jumpers, everybody.
Guys, open up your favorite Christmas whiskies. So we expect some lots of peat smoky stuff, some real PX sherries, all this kind of stuff. And yeah, Christmas jumpers, Christmas hats. We'll be wearing them. Kat will have her penguin jumper on, and it'll be all Magnus, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. The guys who have been watching it have been loving it. Rick saying thank you very much. Another great Blether. Loved hearing from Magnus and your whiskey adventure. Is this an adventure? It's just begun, really. Although probably it feels like it's been going on for forever. For us as a consumer, it's just the start. So. Really, really exciting times.
Perfect.
Thank you, guys. Slanjavad, we'll let you enjoy the rest of your St. Andrew's evening. And see you all next week, if not before.
See you later.
Good night.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks.